today it is my pleasure to introduce our speaker. Dr. Jane Lippmann is a retired UT professor who specializes in preventing falls. But her academic background is she came to UT Austin in 1964 and was a professor in Romance languages, translate that to French, uh, until she retired in 2010, I believe. In addition, she worked in the school with student affairs for a number of years with the UT system. So she's an expert on young people and today old people. Jane, we're delighted you're here.
Thank you, Tom. Good afternoon, and thank you for attending this presentation on keeping falls far, far away and how to prevent them, really. I'm delighted you're here today. While this program cannot guarantee that you'll never fall, I sincerely hope that any future falls you may possibly have will be a lot fewer than in the past. While this fall prevention is important for several reasons, they are common. Some of you may possibly have had a few falls. I know I have. Falls can cause injuries that might result in a trip to the ER or hospitalization, as well as large medical bills and an insurance company to deal with, all of which could be more stressful than you might like or imagine. Falls can take away one's independence and sometimes can cause death. Our risk of falling increases as we age, and according to Harvard Medical School's publication Healthbeat, an estimated 36 million falls occur each year in adults over the age of 65. Older adults who are frail or have medical conditions are at a higher risk for falls. In a recent newsletter from the David Geffen School of Medicine in Los Angeles, I read that every 11 seconds, an older adult is rushed to the emergency room because of a fall. But falling is not an inevitable part of aging. Now let's focus a bit on what we might do for ourselves to prevent falls. I'm thinking specifically about the need for us to be assertive when it comes to our health and how we deal with our medications, our visual issues, any hearing loss we might have. In order to help prevent falls, we should have our vision checked once a year, and at least once a year, we need to review our list of medications. How we treat our own body can affect our balance and our ability to remain upright. One of the best ways to prevent falls is to understand why people fall. Anything that decreases one's strength and mobility affects one's balance. And any changes to one's ability to walk and stand upright may also increase one's risk of falling. This could include things like muscle weakness, gait abnormality, poor balance. Physical activity is critical for preventing falls, and one doesn't need to be Charles Atlas to benefit from it. It is so important to maintain strength, particularly in one's core and legs, as well as improve one's balance and endurance in order to reduce one's risk of falls. When beginning a daily exercise routine, consistency is important. Try to start a program with small exercise goals and aim for a variety of forms of exercise. Even small changes in one's daily activities can make a difference. Especially when beginning a new exercise program, it's so easy to look around the gym and see other people who seem to be running circles around you. And you may feel tempted to quit the program because you think, I could never do that. Are you kidding? If you should ever feel this way, please ignore those athletic geniuses and think of Oscar Wilde, who once said, be yourself. Everybody else is taken. Other things that might explain why people fall can include foot, knee, or back pain, weight changes, lack of sleep, or an injury. Being stressed, preoccupied, and rushing to finish something quickly can also make us lose our balance and fall. If you should ever be feeling that way, try to take a couple of deep breaths and slow down. You've probably heard the saying, slow and steady wins the race. Harvard Medical School points out that certain health problems can also lead to balance problems and increase one's risk of a fracture or other injury from a fall. These problems could include inner ear problems, visual issues, dementia, vitamin D deficiency, osteoporosis, which in itself doesn't appear to increase the risk of falls, but it can make the consequences of a fall devastating. Diseases of the nervous system, such as Parkinson's, potential home hazards, which I'll discuss in more detail in a few minutes. Hearing loss. Exactly why hearing loss makes one more prone to falling isn't very clear, but the link is there. The Geffen School of Medicine reports that merely wearing a hearing aid can lower one's risk for falls-related injuries by 13% and can reduce the risk of dementia as well. Notice the condition of your feet, because the condition of one's feet and the shoes one wears are critical for fall prevention. I know we all know that flip-flops are very popular, but many of them don't provide much support and can cause people to go flippity-flop. People with low levels of sodium in their blood seem to have a greater number of falls and fractures. Poor vision can also cause falls. I'll discuss this in more detail in a few minutes. Also, side effects from many medications can contribute to falls, such as blood pressure medications, which can cause low blood pressure upon standing quickly, sometimes cause postural hypotension, sleep medicines, anti-anxiety drugs, or antidepressants, which make one groggy or can make one groggy and less aware of one's surroundings. Diphenhydramine, sometimes called Benadryl, an antihistamine that is an ingredient in many popular over-the-counter sleep products. Regular use of them is linked to memory problems and a higher fall risk. Now, this doesn't mean you should never take these meds. They may be necessary for your life. However, it does mean you should take them only under your doctor's supervision. And if you should happen to have a problem with one of your medicines, talk to your doctor. The issue might possibly be the time of day you're taking it, or it's interacting with something else you were prescribed. It could also be how you take it. Do you take it with food? Do you take it without food? Or it could be the dose of the medication that needs to be adjusted. As we get older, some of us have been known not to tolerate the meds the way we did when we were younger, and when we absorbed them like candy and didn't need as many most of the time. Also, if you should have a reaction to a drug, that doesn't necessarily mean you'll react to them all. And if your best friend reacts to a certain medication, that doesn't automatically mean you won't tolerate it either. That is why medical supervision is so critically important. By the time most of us have reached middle age, we're taking one or more medications, whether we do so once a day, 3 times a day, once a week, or as needed. The Center for Disease Control, usually called the CDC, recommends that we keep a list of all of our medicines, whether they're prescription drugs, over-the-counter meds, or herbal supplements, and that we update our list once a year or more often if there have been recent changes. It is so easy to forget some of the pills we take, such as aspirin, Tylenol. We sort of take those for granted, I guess. And over-the-counter medicine for allergies, or a drug that we haven't taken in months because we haven't needed it and it went out of our minds. It's very important that each of your doctors knows all of the drugs you're taking. Nowadays, it's not unusual for us to consult specialists in addition to our primary care physician. And I'd like you to avoid any serious drug interaction that might possibly occur if a doctor should unknowingly prescribe a medicine that you should never be taking while you're on a drug prescribed by another doctor. It's not the other doctor who's the problem. Unfortunately, some medicines just don't play well with each other. And when that happens, serious interactions can sometimes occur. Poor vision and issues with depth perception can increase one's chances of falling. It's highly important that we have our eyes checked once a year. It's not uncommon for vision to change slightly from year to year, and other eye issues can pop up as well. Also, it's not easy to notice or pay attention to small changes that could be problematic. Even if we do notice a slight change in our vision, we sometimes figure, oh, it's just old age. Everybody gets that. There are many medical problems that are a lot worse. Some people are afraid they'll have to change eyeglass prescriptions and are understandably reluctant to do so because, as we know, eyeglasses can be very expensive. If you feel you've had changes in vision between your yearly exams, do contact your doctor. The remedy really is not always a new pair of glasses. Dry eye syndrome, for example, is common among older folks. And over-the-counter eye drops are often prescribed instead of a pair of new glasses. If you should at some point get a new prescription and have a pair of eyeglasses, try to take the time to adjust slowly to them. I know I'm not an ophthalmologist, but I'd like to tell you a couple of things I've been advised to do to deal effectively with my trifocals. I'm on the alert to be sure that the intermediate range of my eyeglasses is properly lined up and isn't out of whack, so to speak. In other words, when looking at something at intermediate range, I sometimes find myself looking through the part of the lens designed for the distance or for the lens designed for close-up viewing. And then I don't see very well. So I regularly have my eyeglasses checked at the shop where I buy my glasses and they don't charge a penny because I buy my glasses there. And it takes only a few minutes, and I see so much better after I leave. Depending on my frames, changes in the weather, and we all know here in Austin the weather can change a lot, and how careless I might have been with my glasses. I've been known to sort of not purposely throw them, but be not so delicate in putting them down on a table. And sometimes when you do that, they can get out of adjustment. And so I they need a quick adjustment from time to time, and I can usually tell when it's time. When going up or downstairs, I hold on to the railing if there is one because I can't always tell how far I am from the edge of each step. In other words, where one step ends and the next one starts. I've had this problem since birth, and I think many of us as we age have this issue. And if the intermediate part of my trifocal isn't lined up properly, I can be an accident waiting to happen. So far, we have talked about why fall prevention is important, why people fall, and how dealing with our medications and visual issues can help prevent falls. How we take care of our own bodies can indeed affect our ability to remain upright. But all doesn't have to be gloom and doom. A recent newsletter from the Geffen School of Medicine says, regardless of the cause, most falls can be prevented. Now we're going to change gears a little bit and talk about home safety. The National Council on Aging reported that more than half of all falls happen in and or around the home. Thus, it's very important to go through your home annually with a checklist to look for potential hazards and things, then correct them. I know you're not stupid and you know every inch of your home and where all the traps might be, but other people may visit you from time to time, and most are not privy to this information. I think most likely you're liable to show them your new living room furniture or the wonderful new refrigerator you got, rather than, oh, look at that big spill of water and God knows what is on the floor right now. But if there is, better warn them, but clean it up first. Um, Even if you do know the possible dangers, dangerous quicks problems in your home, quirks is what I meant. If you should be stressed or rush to do something, and who isn't from time to time, I would suspect that all of us have moments when we are somewhat stressed or feeling rushed, and we might temporarily forget about one of the hazards in or around our home until we or somebody we know is flat on the floor. We're all human. Nobody is perfect. We do our best. So what do we do about this? I think it's a good idea to make any necessary changes inside and outside our home. Some will be relatively simple, like picking up clutter from the floor or replacing slippery or sliding mats. Other changes may be a bit more difficult. One possible change would be to have grab bars properly installed in your tub or shower and one near your toilet. Try to have this done before you or a family member should fall and break a leg or has a hip or knee replaced. And speaking of toilets, I think a raised toilet seat is in your bathroom or in one of your bathrooms might also be useful for several people our age who haven't broken a limb, who haven't fallen. You know, one doesn't have to be an octogenarian to have a safe, comfortable shower bathtub, or toilet, the benefits people of all ages can reap from them can be immeasurable. I know you'll think that, hey, to put all this in and I haven't fallen, that's going to cost money. And I know it does. But maybe you don't need to do all of it at one time. Do something one year. The next year, do some another time, do the other thing and work on it as an ongoing project. Now, if you should fall, then it's a project that needs to be done right away. You may need help from a family member, a friend, or volunteer organization like Capital City Village. Try not to be Superman or Superwoman and stand on a ladder. It's easy to think, I'll just grab this ladder and just stand on a step, and it'll just take 2 seconds, and I'll get that light bulb properly placed in the socket, and that'll be the end of that, or whatever the task on hand might be. That ladder would help to resolve the problem. As we get older, asking for help is a sign of wisdom and strength, not weakness. That's my feeling. Keep in mind that you may have friends or repairmen come to your home who may not be aware of any hidden or obvious traps. And if one of these visitors should happen to trip on a rug that isn't smooth and flat on the floor or doesn't stay put when you or your visitors walk on it, one of you may fall and break a bone or have a concussion or suffer some injury. As a result, you may not only lose a friend or a good repairman, you may also have a lawsuit to deal with. It's then too late to say, I know I should have replaced that rug, fixed it, but probably just gotten rid of it. Have you ever noticed or spilled a little water or other liquid on the floor of your home and told yourself, I really should clean this up right now? But it's just water, a little water, it'll dry. And you think, I've got so much on my mind right now, and I'm extremely busy. I'll take care of it later. When does later come? When one is busy and or stressed, one tends to move quickly, and it's easy to miss a puddle of water and fall. If one should fall and suffer an injury that requires a trip to the ER, then one also could have high medical bills and an insurance company to deal with, both of which could take more time and be more stressful than mopping up a spill. Packages or other items such as your grandchildren's toys, such as Legos. They might drop a Lego here and there and you thought you'd pat it all up. If that stuff is left in the middle of the floor or packages left on a staircase, can also be problematic. You might ask, why do you think I would leave anything in the middle of the floor? I'm not an idiot. I know you're not an idiot. And I know you wouldn't have intended to leave it there, but you may have put it down temporarily when the phone or doorbell rang. Has that ever happened to you? And then forgotten about it or been distracted by that person on the phone trying to sell you something you wouldn't ever want? Or the person at the front door and you went off and did other things, one of which might eventually be falling over the item on the floor and possibly being injured. Can you imagine your insurance company licking their chops at this point? If you happen to have stairs, both inside or outside your home, like going up to a deck, what have you outside, or going up into your house, please consider seriously putting up railings on both sides of the staircase. And please be careful when carrying packages up or down the stairs. If one is tired or busy at the end of a challenging day, one might try to save an extra trip or two going up. You brought in enough, you did a month's worth of shopping, and you're going to put some things down in a basement, for example, or whatever, where that requires a room where you have downstairs, and you say, I don't have the strength to go up and down those stairs 3 trips. I'll just put more stuff in a bag. And you have a huge bag, which is like a huge balloon, and you can't see the steps in front of you, and you might lose your balance. Even if you can see the steps in front of you, if the bag is not weighted properly for you, you could lose your balance, fall, and break a bone. Please don't leave packages or other items on your staircase thinking you'll move them later. I also believe it's important to have good lighting inside and outside your home, and especially when going upstairs and downstairs or downstairs. Try to have light switches both at the top and the bottom of the staircase, and each indoor staircase, and light outside where you have stairs, so you can clearly see all the steps in front of you. You might also want to paint the edge of each step so you can clearly see where one step begins and another ends and not trip. Also, if you get up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, consider installing night lights. People have said, I don't like night lights. They shine on my face and I can't sleep. But you can put one near your bed that comes on automatically as soon as your feet touch the floor. And it turns off a few minutes later, so your sleep will not be disturbed by a light shining on you all night. In addition, be sure you have lights along the pathway from your bedroom to your bathroom, as well as a night light in your bathroom that will turn off after a few minutes when you're back in bed. The world now has remote lighting, and I bet one can have a setup similar to what I have in my formerly poorly lit room where I have my computer. I have a remote that's smaller than what I use for my TV. This is what it looks like. And it has the capacity to turn on one of 5 lights, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So when it's set up, you designate what lamp goes on for number 1, what goes on and off for 2, 3, 4, and 5. This column is for the ons, this is for the off. And I bet there are more sophisticated remotes available. I bought mine from Amazon and a friend installed it. I know my remote setup has nothing to do with fall prevention per se, but there's no reason why it can't be configured for one's bedroom, bathroom, entryway to a home, etc. If your lighting is poor, either inside your home or outside, you might not see obstructions, and then there could be something dangerous happening. Finally, and especially when you're remodeling your bathrooms, I repeat that I think that it's a smart idea to have installed grab bars and possibly an elevated toilet seat in at least one of your bathrooms, and not wait until you, a family member, or visitor falls and fractures a limb. Even if we don't fall, as we age, some of us may have arthritis and other conditions and might feel more secure in the bathroom if there were grab bars and a raised toilet seat. When purchasing grab bars, please try to get those that must be installed securely into the studs of your walls instead of with a suction cup. Now, I know some suction cups have guarantees, but they don't last as long as one that is been put in to the stud of the wall. And it's safer that way. Because if a bar should fall out, that's because the suction cup failed, there could be a problem and you may go down with it. Another possible fall hazard can be one's pet. Now, I love pets, don't misunderstand me. Whether it's your sweet, darling cat or dog, one has to be careful. I adore my cat. I really do. She's very sweet, but she loves to get underfoot. And other people's cats may possibly do the same to them. My cat and I have this conversation occasionally. She recently has been getting under my foot, and I'll say, Stripey, out of my feet, please, baby, out of my feet, get out of my feet. And she'll move, but I have to tell her sometimes. I don't want to trip over her and fall, and I don't want her to get hurt. One of my friends, who is a very smart lady, has a dog she walks every day. A few years ago, my friend somehow, I wasn't there, so I didn't observe the accident, but she somehow got tangled up in the dog's leash. While walking with her, she fell and got a 10 for breaking her arm. Our pets don't mean to hurt us, but since we're the human grown-ups, it behooves us to be vigilant around them. In 1994, I fell at work doing a good deed. I was on leave that year, and a colleague phoned one night. I was out knitting with a knitting group here in town at a coffee shop. And anyway, that person called and said to my late husband, tell Jane to teach my 11 o'clock class tomorrow. She's the only other person who has ever taught that course. I don't trust just anyone with that class, and I must be with my daughter who had a kidney stone removed today. Tell Jane I'm on page 97. That was the message I got when I got home. Well, I had taught the class a lot of times. And I went to campus the next day. Remember, I was on leave and was waiting in my office until it was time to go to her class. When I heard my colleague in her office 2 doors away, and I went down to her office and I said, how's Catherine doing? And she was doing pretty well. And why? Her mother wasn't with her that day. She was determined to teach. She thanked me and told me to go home. Now the fun began. As I walked out of her office, I slid and fell on heavily waxed parquet flooring that I hadn't noticed in a rather dimly lit hallway. It was the beginning of the school year, and whoever was cleaning up the floors really put wax on with a vengeance to make it look really wonderful. I knew immediately I had done something very, very bad. My colleague friend heard the noise and came running and said, what piece of furniture had fallen? I told her, none, I did. And I added that if I were older, I'd say I had broken my right hip. I wasn't older, but that was what I had done. That illustrates that being in great physical shape, which I was at that time, can change in a heartbeat, and even younger people can have orthopedic difficulties. And I must add also that the hospital wouldn't let Calamity Jane here go home until her husband had the house child-proof with grab bars and a raised toilet seat. Hopefully, I've made a few suggestions that will enable you to remain upright for the rest of your life. I'll end this with a somewhat humorous true story, and this is a true story, honestly, that took place when I was in the hospital recovering from my surgery for my broken hip caused by that colossal fall I just told you about. It also illustrates the importance of being assertive about one's health. One morning, it was around 3:15 a.m., give or take, I really had to go to the bathroom very badly. I was still in the hospital, but I wasn't allowed to get up by myself. I had passed the bedpan stage, but I was attached to a pole containing an IV and other medications. And then if I were going to get up, someone would have to use the pole, and I would have a walker and would need both hands to use the walker. So most normal people would press the call button. So I'm looking, where's the call button? Off the bed and halfway to San Antonio, it seemed. So I was too old to scream or wet the bed, and I knew I had only a couple of minutes to come up with plan B. I suddenly remembered that at the time of my accident, I was a volunteer for Reach to Recovery and had visited several patients in that very hospital, but they were on another floor, but it was that hospital. So I decided to phone the main line of the telephone because I could reach of the hospital because I could reach the phone, and ask to be transferred to the nurses station on that floor. I don't know how, in the midst of all this, I remembered the main telephone line of the hospital, but I did 512-324-1000, and I asked to be connected to 3 North Nurses Station or East or whatever. Um, this is the conversation that went on between her when she got on, the nurses station got on. What I told her was, hello, and in this tone of voice, hello, this is your patient in 320. It seems that my call button has a lot more mobility than I do right now, and I really, really have to go to the bathroom, and I don't want to wet the bed. I'm too old for that, and I'm not allowed to get up by myself. Right there, and you could hear her coming down the hall, laughing and moving very quickly. She came into the room. She helped me get to the bathroom and back to bed. Then she thanked me several times. Thank you, thank you, thank you. To that I said, I'm the one who should be thanking you. She said, you didn't scream. You didn't scream. And I said, well, as far as I know, it's my right hip that's the problem, and above the waist, I'm just fine. I then told her that if I had screamed, every patient on this floor would be pressing his or her call button and asking, what happened, and who died? I also told you this story because it didn't end there. That story was 1994. Okay, it didn't end there. 24 years later, in 2018, I was visiting a very close friend whose room was 2 doors away from where I had been in 1994. My friend was a widow who was very, very ill, and I visited her virtually every day and sometimes twice a day. One day, I was stopped in the hall by an elderly nurse who said to me, I know you. I've seen you before. I do know you. I hadn't a clue as to who this woman was. I asked her if she had ever been a UT student. That would have made sense, could be someone I had taught maybe. No, I've never been to UT, but I've seen you before. I then said, well, maybe you saw me walking up and down the hall because occasionally I take a break, for a short break, and then come back. And she said, um, yes, I've seen you in the hall several times, but that's not it. I know we've talked before. Grasping at straws, I asked whether she had been a nurse on that floor for a while, to which she responded like this, honey, I've been a nurse on this floor for many, many years. Then the light bulb finally came on my brain, and I realized I had been caught by my rescuer from 1994. I told her it was nice to see her again, and we parted ways. So thank you again for coming out on this very toasty day and for listening so patiently to me. Have a good rest of the day.
One other suggestion. Yeah, you're getting clouds from all your, Jane, look at the screen there.
Excuse me?
Your online people are clapping for you.
Oh,
This screen.
oh. This screen.
We'll be back.
Anyway, the only thing I was going to suggest that I have noticed that has occasional problem is your nightstand next to you. Make sure it doesn't have as many sharp edges as many of them do, because I've had friends roll out of bed and hit their face and do some damage there. I mean, we can't be perfect, but at least cut down on the sharp edges. But thanks again for being here. It's the clarity with which you deliver is pretty marvelous. You obviously have taught a lot of French students. Thank you again.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very, very
Hey.
much.
Yes, it was a wonderful presentation, and to end on a happy note and a funny note made it even better. Thank you.
You're welcome. Glad I could be of help.
I can't hear her.